day today, and everybody's tuned in, feeling okay here. It's Monday. You can hear me okay. So, guys, in a market where it's moving faster than most investors can comprehend, it's easy to get lost chasing the headlines. But today, I want to show you something deeper that the top AI companies aren't just riding hype, a lot of them, they're creating unprecedented, I'm trying to say, value. And this is the type of value that has rarely been seen in history. And it's easy to just kind of scratch the surface. But the real story here is some of the transformation and the wealth creation that's happening beneath it all. And if you know where to look, this could be one of the most important moments in your investing life this year. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to do some analysis today. You guys hear me talking so big, and you might say, Will, it's quite the outlook on the market. And I'll tell you what, our portfolio is up 46% today on calls on Big Bear AI, which surged about 15% on the stock, and that was big on AMD, which had a record-breaking day. And so I don't say this to brag or show you how much money I'm making or anything like that. That's really not why I'm saying that. I'm saying this because while a lot of people will tell you that the markets are overbought, when the markets are overvalued and things are not making sense, sometimes what you have to do is really gauge how much value creation is happening in the market. And we've seen what most investors would wish we could see here. These are the types of moves that most investors have waited years for. And it's excellent that we're able to witness them. Now, Nixon has a comment there, says, do you think BBAI will run more, or do you think it will keep getting halted at the $10 price point? Well, I mean, if it runs to the $10 price point here, then that's definitely running some more. Be looking at about a 47% increase up to those previous highs there. So, anything like that is great. We're going to go over some of the top quantum stocks today as well. One thing to note about some of the companies we got reporting earnings. Some of you guys know inside StockMate, we have our announcements. You get to see my entries, my exits. We have daily live trading happening in 9 hours, as it does every day at market open. And we have a special sale there that's running for lifetime access. If you want to join us Monday through Friday, it's the second link in the description. Now, the reason I bring it up is because we have our earnings come out for this week, earnings for the week of August 4th. We had some higher bullish targets on Palantir, which Palantir absolutely crushed earnings. We had all of our targets come out, and here are the earnings for the week. So the earnings have been coming out very positive. Navitas came out with some not such good earnings. We haven't covered that one too much because their market delivery hasn't really been on par with what we normally cover. But nevertheless, I know a lot of you guys follow that stock, and we just noticed they did come in a little bit under their targets. Now, tomorrow is a really big day for the markets. We got AMD reporting after hours. So you got Arista, so data centers, as well as SuperMicro computer. And I kind of wanted to go down the list real quick. So, there's a few things. We see some good comments here. Jose Alvarado says, very good day again. You're the best. Hey, man, you're the best, Jose. I see you here almost every day, man. I appreciate you tuning in, hitting the like button, all that stuff. It's awesome. And yeah, EPLD, a good day today. Great day for Big Bear AI as we see it surge some more. And let's take a look at some of the companies that are reporting. So AMD reports tomorrow. AMD stock is specializing in now what is data centers. At one point, they were heavily on gaming. You guys might know AMD processors. One thing that's proving to be potentially true is AMD has maybe better GPUs than that of NVIDIA. Now, both companies are creating a tremendous amount of value, and just because a company is competing and things like that, it's not bad. And in no way would I, pick one company over the other and bet on one other. But I do know that AMD is much smaller in their market cap but they are bringing in tremendous revenue. We're going to get into it. So not only does AMD have their earnings this week, tomorrow, they've had really consistent positive earnings over the last year, but continue to sell off despite having a doubling of their revenue. So now they've been on this uptrend and they've started to surge up to this 182 price point and trying to continue the rally. 41% continued up to previous highs. Now it's a bullish outlook, but one thing to note about AMD stock is that they moved into data centers and they're powering a lot of what is the AI boom. They also, when we look at their financials, have had really, really great revenue increases, surging to about 7 billion in their last quarter with positive net incomes, and their annual revenue is growing year over year. So when you look at their balance sheet, you also see that their total assets are really high up there to about 70 billion, while their total liabilities just 11 billion, which indicates pretty good health on their assets and liabilities, as their assets are rising and their liabilities are actually shrinking. Now, since they started focusing more on data centers, that hasn't been the only thing that's allowed them to double their revenue. The other thing that they focus on pretty heavily, which a lot of people don't talk about, is AMD stock and Starlink. I would say if a company is willing to, let's say, put their GPUs up into space, that means that that company believes those GPUs will last a very long time. you know? And good evening, Dean, crazy Carl, good morning or good afternoon. Redwire earnings is on August 6th. That's a good one. You got two brothers. You got Nixon. Good to see you here. Morris, thanks for tuning in there. Hey there. And Johnny Bananas there. What kind of role will BBAI have in the 2028 Olympics? It's a great question, and we have an answer for you. But let's just take a look here. So a couple things. First of all, I'm honored that when we search AMD stock and Starlink, that our YouTube channel is one of the main companies or main references for those insights, guys, on Google. These are the types of things that I wanted to say thank you for. Some of the research that we have going into it is being shared, and a lot of people don't really realize that AMD is supplying for Starlink. I mean, one thing to note is AMD has their GPUs going into SpaceX's Starlink satellites, and they just launched recently. I just saw some new constellations fly over my house. I'm in California, so I get it. But that's a really good indication for AMD along with their data centers. Now, aside from AMD crushing it in the data centers and adding into Starlink, the other thing about AMD stock is that they recently acquired this company, Brium. So, as you know, you have Microsoft with OpenAI, and you have Google's Gemini, and you have Grok and Meta, and all these new OpenAI type of large language models where you can chat with them, ChatGPT, kind of get what I'm talking about there. And one of the companies that AMD actually just purchased is Brium. And Brium actually specializes in running open source software and large language models on AMD hardware. And in fact, part of why they were acquired by AMD is because the large language models are optimized specifically for performance on AMD hardware. So AMD loved that. And then in the study from Brium, where they accelerated inference, compared what most large language models run on the right side here, SGLang, versus on the left side, you have Brium's inference times, and the comparison and how fast they run. So for example, on the left here, you see how fast the model is being able to produce a answer. And on the right side, you have it taking a much longer time to begin to start pushing out the results. And so the benchmarks looked really good, and Brium was really doing well, and they were running it on AMD's MI210s. And shortly after, AMD purchased the company. So is AMD maybe making its way into an OpenAI type of moment, working on their own language models that could be highly effective and compete with that of ChatGPT? that's something to note. It's really on the back end, but a lot of people don't really realize that, and they don't realize that AMD Starlink partnerships. So I like to bring it up. I think those are certain things that kind of put them into a big conversation there in technology. So right now they have a previous support here right around $160, which we mapped out, and they're trying to make this run up to this $200 price point to $240 price point. And that's what we're going to be focusing on here and their earnings tomorrow. So that's going to be AMD's focused. Now the other companies, so you got AMD after hours tomorrow. You also have SuperMicro Computer. Now SuperMicro Computer also works with one of the companies Jose recently just mentioned there, APLD. Johnny Bananas says, what kind of role, Johnny? I will answer that for you here. Rich Anderson, hey, what's going on, Rich? Hopefully you're having a great day today, man. So when it comes to the Supermicro Computer outlook, for those of you guys that don't know, Supermicro Computer essentially, if you know like NVIDIA, or you're familiar with AMD, for example, NVIDIA and AMD have these GPUs, and they are put into these data centers so that you can run these run AI. It's basically the backbone of AI. And Supermicro Computer, they build the actual housing systems, the towers that are able to put the GPUs into towers and store them inside of the data centers. And Supermicro Computer is not only partnered with NVIDIA and AMD and many others, but they also, if you go over to APLD, the company that's building the data centers, you see those racks there, those are most likely Supermicro Computer. Here, you could see that Supermicro Computer is one of their main partners. So as data centers are being built for NVIDIA, for Dell, for Intel, and Hewlett Packard, Supermicro Computer is the main one to call to house those GPUs. Now, outside of Supermicro Computer working with data centers and working to supply for NVIDIA and what have you, they're also supplying for XAI. So let me just search that and just confirm that we still have that deal happening here. So Supermicro Computer here with XAI's Colossus, the world's largest AI supercomputer, is actually being powered by these liquid-cooled supercluster towers produced by Supermicro Computer. So while NVIDIA is a big company people talk about, and then maybe if you're looking at the companies that provide for NVIDIA, like Taiwan Semiconductor, or that build the data centers for NVIDIA, like APLD, well, that's when you start to get down into smaller markets. But then there's also the private sector. And the private sector is like XAI, which is Elon's company, and they are building the largest data centers in the world. And actually, Supermicro Computer provides for them. Now it's kind of a private contract. There hasn't been a lot of talk about it. People don't really know about that. But they got their earnings coming up tomorrow after hours along with AMD. And most likely we could see that impact their earnings in what I would believe would be a positive way. Now, there's one other company here for tomorrow that's reporting earnings that's definitely a notable AI company to consider. And that's going to be Arista. So Arista stock, Arista Networks, is a $150 billion company. They have a fairly high PE ratio, but they're very good with their revenue. You can see their revenue increasing year over year. Really nice balance sheet. See that blue revenue starting to increase while their net income is positive there. And then you got their balance sheet for ANET. This is ANET, starting to grow and get their total assets above 10 billion and really seeing that consistent growth. You might say, why? It looks pretty good. They're having some good growth. Why is that? Well, we could verify this, but I believe they are very heavily in the data centers and the data-driven cloud. So they actually build the cloud networking that is utilized by most data centers. And you got cloud networking, you got cloud grade routing, you got federal government they work with. When you look at their website, they look almost a little bit dated, and that's fine. But it probably would do them some good to get a little bit cooler website, I would say. That's okay though. They'll most likely be doing it better at some point. Then you have AI-driven campuses. You have where they're building out, and they have their press room here, their press releases. It's kind of hard to navigate their website. It's actually not the most beautiful, but I know that they're working with a tremendous amount of tech companies to develop cloud technology. And what we see with them is they got their earnings coming up, and they're trying to continue to keep that growth up. And when it comes to Arista, ANET, see how they're looking here. So again, just to kind of review for those of you guys not tuning in, some people were a little bit surprised that I went so bullish today on the market. We went bearish on Friday, I think it was. We did SOXS. We are living right now in a moment of history that's there's unprecedented amounts of value being created in the market. And while the market might look really overvalued, things like that, there's also a tremendous amount of value creation at unprecedented rates that we've never seen before. And so, I do think that when you have those types of things working together along with a lot of positive earnings, something like tariffs, for example, that are actually not even dealt with. Like right now, we don't have a China deal, we don't have a Canada deal, we don't have a Mexico deal. At least as far as I'm pretty sure that's where we're at. And it looks like it did make this run last time we were looking for this move, this 32% move on ANET. Excuse me. And it did make that move. But again, with all those things, then you got the Fed not cutting interest rates, and they're like, you got to cut interest rates. And then you have the job reports looking like, okay, like not looking too hot. And why? Why do we see the market continue to rally? Well, most likely it's got to be related to just the value creation in the markets and the confidence from institutions. So that's kind of what we're seeing, right? And so that's why we went bullish. That's why we continue to hold AMD and Rigetti. So people have notably, I was talking with one of the scientists. His last name was James. I think his first name might have been Michael James, I think it was. And he was a scientist at IonQ. And so they are also reporting this week, the quantum company. They report on Wednesday after hours. And I did a video on it because we went to a conference. We actually got to go speak with Microsoft and IBM and the head executives of and scientists of their quantum divisions. And IBM just surpassing over $1 billion in revenue from their quantum, and then IonQ and Rigetti making their way into the Microsoft networks and things like that. I'm talking with this guy. I believe his name was Michael James, scientist, and he said, how many of you guys can hold up your phone? And I actually have the video. I wish I could pull it up. But he says, how many of you guys can hold up your phone? And he said, the light in which you have in your phone that's coming from your camera, if you would have told a human from 100 years ago that you could touch that light and not get burned, they would think that you were crazy. And nowadays, we have so much quantum technology around us. I mean, LEDs are an example of that. LCD screens, the LEDs, the different graphics and new developments of chips, and in this case, IonQ working with trapped ion technology. And so that quote that he had, and he told me, it really stuck with me, because I'm like, people almost don't realize the massive value creation that's happening in the world because it's right in front of them. If it wasn't right in front of them and it was just every few months or every year's revealed by a curtain, then people would look at technology evolution as much more rapid and they'd be like, oh my gosh, wow. Like look how much we did in the last 6 months. But as things just like the new iPhone comes out, the new, the new computer or the new show or the new thing that you see on social media, it's like, oh yeah, robotics are here and like people have bionic arms and AI is passing the PhD and can get the bar exam finished in 5 minutes. Like there's certain things where now it's like you don't realize it, but it's a tremendous evolution that we're seeing right in front of us. And so, one of the markets we focus on here is quantum. You got quantum computing over with IonQ. We've talked about them a few times this week. They got Air Force Research Laboratory, Oak Ridge. They got DARPA, Microsoft, Amazon Bracket. They're partnered with NVIDIA. And they have their earnings coming up this week as well. And they're already a pretty high valuation, about $11 billion valuation. But if their technology continues to develop the way it is, they could be, the QPU leader, or Rigetti could be the QPU leader. So quantum processing units, not GPUs, but QPUs. And so that is where the market is definitely seeing more attention, where the revenues, they're moving slowly. They're slowly increasing, but they are exponential. They are doubling year over year. Might not feel like a lot because they're only at $40 or $50 million a year. But I'll tell you, if they're doubling, very quickly in a few years, we could see quantum in another place. They also have a fair amount of cash. Their cash is definitely up there, so they don't have any problems with liabilities or anything like that. Mark says, how are you not going to mention Redwire? How am I not going to mention Redwire? I just mentioned it. We could definitely check it out. So we see a lot of movement definitely on AMD, Big Bear AI. You got SMR, the nuclear company, is reporting this week as well on Thursday after hours, along with SoundHound and Rocket Lab there. That's an exciting Thursday there. And D-Wave Quantum is reporting there on Thursday. Uber had a really good time. They got reportings. You got Taiwan Semiconductor was up. Most stocks absolutely crushed it today. We take a look at our space tech watch list over here for Benoit. They are Redwire. You got them kind of leading the way today. Looks like Redwire made a little bit of a run there up into that $15 price point. We've been watching Redwire and looking for that recovery up into that $20 range. We see them recover from $13 up to about $15.24 today. So really nice recovery there. We're looking for that 44% increase up into those levels. They are one of the 14 prime contractors in a $2.7 billion deal. So really big deal. They are one of 14 contractors in that deal for the iSpace. We actually got to see them sign that in person over in the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs, which, by the way, if you guys have new conferences, things like that you think would be beneficial for the channel, send it over my way. I would love to, hit it. We went to CES to get the quantum covered. We got to go to the Space Symposium and get all the space tech covered. I talked to most of these companies. And so that's what we got coming. On Wednesday, you got Joby reporting here. Joby will be reporting. That's going to be a big one. And pre-market, you got Uber, Shopify, Symbotic stock, the company that signed a $500 million deal to do the back warehouse robotics for Walmart and what was the other company? Target. There's one Albertsons. Those three companies. Symbotic is doing robotics for the helping those companies easily transition from just regular warehouses or not warehouses, but big department stores that have groceries and things like that to be able to do e-commerce out of the back of their warehouse. Symbotic is helping with that transition, and we love to watch their earnings there on Wednesday as well. So Palantir also came in with over $1 billion in books of business. They came in with really good earnings this week, so that was tremendous for them. When it comes to Redwire, I would say, yeah, that's kind of the move we're watching right now there for Mr. Benoit. And they're also doing some pharmaceutical ventures in space. That's an interesting one, right? They're doing drug discovery in zero gravity environments, which is very interesting. And they also, when I was talking to an Air Force Research Laboratory guy, big tall guy, looked like a Spartan. Literally, it was cool. With respect, I got to talk to him about Redwire, and he said that Redwire was one of the top companies they enjoyed working with at Air Force Research Laboratory because they were helping them develop not just LiDAR, because LiDAR was they were finding it to be inaccurate in the way that they collect data on space because everything's moving. They send out the LiDAR, when it bounces back, they get a lot of scattered data because of all the moving parts of space, But when it comes to Redwire, they were working on extremely high def cameras. They were just insane, like huge cameras. They get mounted on the satellites that aren't necessarily, maybe for just spectating down on Earth, but actually just taking extremely high def images that could then be used for data purposes. And I thought that was really interesting. So Redwire's got some investments from us for sure. You got Rocket Lab continuing up to that $45 a share. Black Sky had a big day. They were up 20% or 10% today. And we're still waiting for Black Sky to make this move up into that $22 price point. That's right. So they actually made, of the 17% margins we were looking for, Black Sky has already increased about 10% of that just today. So they already made a big move today, and that's excellent as we have some long-term holds there. So a lot of things happening in the markets. Joby in aviation, did pretty well. And Joby will be reporting earnings as well. Now, I just want to come on here, give you guys kind of an update on the markets. There's definitely a lot of green in the markets, and we could see some pullbacks, of course. But one thing to note, doesn't necessarily mean that you should have fear. I don't know, but I could search on Google. We could do a quick Google search, and by no means would this be to, I don't know what's going to come up. But if I search on YouTube and I just search the stock market, let's see what happens. A lot of things maybe are like, it's a trap. The market's, okay, some people are bullish. All right, all-time high. Okay, it seems like but a big warning signal. Sometimes there's a lot of videos, I guess you could say, that. And shout out to my beautiful wife. Love to watch her videos there. That's the market's overextended. How many of you guys have heard that? Oh my gosh, everything's so high right now. Be careful. Be careful. Everything's so high right now. That was my bad acting. But what I mean is that when it comes to the markets, it's just the most commonly overlooked factor by market pessimists is going to be the value creation. I mean, we have companies. I just got off the phone with my good friend Ben. He works at Rocket Lab. They're an end-to-end space company that builds carbon fiber and carbon composite rockets, and they launch them into space. And they've been doing it to help companies build out their own Starlink type setups. And the company is an end-to-end space company, right? I just was on the phone with him yesterday when I was playing some golf, and he was going to visit the Tesla diner in Los Angeles, which is funny because that's where he works, Long Beach. And he was just telling me, yeah, Will, I'm actually potentially going to be transitioning from working in their software for their hardware and things to actually working on their new AI ventures. You have space companies working on AI. You have Black Sky, a company here that has AI satellites for surveillance that has extremely high def images that can track people, cars, ocean activity, airplanes. I mean, we have we have quantum computing companies. We have Big Bear AI creating these biometric scanners that are being deployed into airports, and we can see them firsthand. So what I'm saying is this is definitely different than most times when you see, let's say, like the .com bubble, when everybody and their mom is saying this internet company and this internet company, but you really don't know what they're providing. It's just a bunch of ones and zeros, And so in this instance, we're really seeing it firsthand, and we're really getting a look at these companies, and we're not only getting a look at them, we're seeing the real world value creation, and it's a beautiful thing to watch here. So that's what I'm going to leave you guys on. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday. I hope that everybody is enjoying their week. And Sujai, thanks for tuning in. D-Wave Quantum, we'll get some more updates coming up here before the end of the week as their earnings are coming up on Thursday. And again, if you guys want these earnings when companies report, every week we release them along with all of the targets for all of the companies that we have there. And then if you want our daily live trading sessions, it's happening in about 9 hours at market open, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. You get an email in your inbox for our daily live sessions. Today we were trading, and we were able to have a record-breaking day today with some calls on Big Bear AI and also some buy and sell orders on AMD. And yeah, appreciate you all. Again, if you want to join us there, there's an awesome breakdown of how StockMate works. I even send you a free t-shirt with that second link in the description. Appreciate you all. If I earned your thumbs up, again, smash that like button. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.